Hello, good evening and welcome to News 360 live from the News Hub here at Adesawe, Kanda. I'm Natalie Fort.
My name is Asiedu-Dartey. Coming up in the next 60 minutes tonight.
News 360 Headlines is brought to you by
Rescue operation underway at Nsuta Prestia in the western region to reach illegal miners trapped in a pit since Sunday amid claims of more than 15 people remaining underground.
Supreme Court dismisses application by businessman Asiedu-Dartey seeking to halt an oral examination by the Attorney General in relation to the 51.2 million cedis judgment debt wrongfully paid to him by the state.
Also in the bulletin, Managing Director of BOST Alfred Obeng-Boateng cleared of any wrongdoing in sale of 5 million litres of contaminated fuel. Meanwhile, the minority in Parliament says his exoneration is a cover-up.
And in business this evening, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia dismisses assertions the $15 billion pledge by China is a loan.
And on the foreign front this evening, Uganda Civil Service implements strict dress code, making it an offence for female public servants to wear sleeveless blouses and skirts above the knee. Well, we have the details of these stories for you here on News 360, as well as the very latest from the world of sports, entertainment, and the international community. Over to you, Alfred.
Absolutely. Let's go into our first story this evening, straight to the courts, where the Supreme Court has dismissed an application for stay of proceedings by businessman Asiedu-Dartey seeking to halt an oral examination by the Attorney General. Justice Alfred Benning, sitting as the sole judge, said the application filed by Asiedu-Dartey had no basis to be considered.
Alfred Agbesi-Woyome filed an application to stay proceedings on the oral examination granted Attorney General. This is because he had filed for a review of orders made by a sole judge on the retrieval of the 51.2 million cedis judgment debt. The argument made by the counsel for the applicant, Kenanku, said if the oral examination is conducted, it will cause an irreparable damage to his client. This argument was opposed by Deputy Attorney General Godfrey Yeboah-Dame, describing the application as unmeritorious and incompetent. After the ruling was delivered, the Deputy Attorney General demanded a cost of 200,000 cedis from Alfred Woyome, which Kenanku opposed, stating his client is already owing, and if the cost is preferred on him, it will cause him more harm. He also added Woyome was sick, which resulted in his absence in court. This also attracted an opposition from the Deputy Attorney General, who said the argument had no basis. Kenanku therefore provided a medical report from the 37 military hospital in a bid to prove his claim. The sole judge, Justice Alfred Benning, however, did not prefer any cost to the debtor. Alfred Agbesi-Woyome was wrongfully paid a judgment debt of 51.2 million cedis by the state, which the Supreme Court in 2014 ordered him to pay back after former Attorney General Martin Amidu challenged the basis of the payment.
And the Court of Appeal has adjourned the case between suspended lawyer Francis Javier Sosu and the General Legal Counsel to July 11 for counsel of Sosu to consolidate two different applications he filed against the General Legal Counsel. According to the court, the two applications were similar in nature and should be consolidated before hearing begins.
Counsel for suspended lawyer Francis Xavier Sosu Samuel Kujo filed two different applications in response to two charges from the General Legal Counsel for touting and overcharging. Presiding Judge Justice Henry Anthony Kofi told counsel of the applicant the two applications are similar and would need to be consolidated. Responding to the judge's observation, counsel for the applicant told the court they filed two applications because the suit was different. Counsel for the General Legal Counsel Kizito Beyo raised a concern indicating that supplementary affidavit filed by the respondent was received on the morning of Tuesday, July 4, the day of hearing, indicating some allegations have been raised against officials of the General Legal Counsel which he needs time to examine, therefore the need to ask for an adjournment. Lawyer Francis Sosu is in the Court of Appeal against the General Legal Counsel after he was suspended for 3 years for advertising and overcharging a client.
So the 12 labor unions say they will resist any attempt by the Ministry of Finance to supervise the collection of contributions of pensioners. At an emergency news conference in Accra, the unions charged the ministry to seek amendment of Section 13 of Act 766 of the Pensions Act, which allows the Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations to supervise the contributions.
Section 13 of the Pensions Act 766, passed in 2006, mandates the Minister of Employment and Labour Relations to supervise pension contributions. However, from 2010 to 2016, the Minister of Finance then supervised the collections, which the 12 labor unions described as unfair. At its emergency news conference in Accra, it stated that the 2017 budget statement of government has again mandated the Minister of Finance to supervise the contributions. This, the chairman of the 12 labor unions, Isaac Bampoado, has pleaded with the Minister of Finance not to act unconstitutionally.
The Minister for Finance cannot use a budget to amend an act. If they want to amend it, they should go to Parliament and amend it. What we know is that the Minister for Employment is the Minister for Pensions. And that's it.
He again charged the government to resolve all outstanding issues on the second-tier pension scheme.
The MPRA is to ensure that the terms of settlement filed by government and the forum at the High Court in February 2016 are complied by all parties. We will give government up to 31st July 2017 to resolve all outstanding issues raised.
A member of the 12 labor unions, Ahina Kwakwashi, was worried any further delay in resolving the problems could affect the investment portfolio of contributors.
You have only 2.5 years for these occupational pension schemes to begin paying lump sums to workers who will be retiring January 2020. So we are serious about it.
In other stories this evening, rescue efforts are still underway to rescue 16 out of the 22 illegal miners suspected to have been trapped in a mining pit which is over 80 feet deep at Prestia Nsuta in the Prestia-Huni Valley district of the Western region. 5 people successfully escaped from the pit and are being interrogated by the police, with 1 lifeless body so far retrieved by the rescue team from the pit.
Rescue team from Golden Star Resources, the Ghana National Fire Service, the police service and some illegal miners have joined forces to rescue the trapped miners, numbering about 16, after some rituals were performed, which included the pouring of libation by a fetish priest. The secretary to the Prestia-Huni Valley Small-Scale Miners Association, Mustafa Nuhu Mohammed, speaking to TV3 News, disclosed that only 1 lifeless body has so far been recovered by the team. According to reports from one of the Galamseyers who managed to escape, the pit cracked from the top and caved in, thereby covering those working in the middle of the pit, while those who were working underground managed to escape from the other exits of the pit. Deputy Minister for Lands and Natural Resources Benito Owusubio visited the site of the incident together with some security personnel and traditional authorities and Member of Parliament for the area, Barbara Oting-Jesse.
Let's stay a bit further with us. Sector Minister John Peter Mewu admitted, though there have been challenges in the fight against illegal mining activity, the ministry is making efforts to win the fight. He added the government is determined to fight the Galamsey menace to the end.
The recent fight on Galamsey started about 3 months ago. Together with the media, several efforts were put in to ensure a total ban on the illegal activity. The efforts included new regulations and a total ban on the mining activity. However, the recent incident where some 17 locals are reported to have been trapped in a Galamsey pit in the Western region clearly indicates that the illegal activity is still going on. The minister explains the law will take charge of the other 5 who were able to escape the incident. He was, however, not happy with the result of the fight so far.
We have not succeeded yet. I still believe that there's a lot more to be done. We will only come to a conclusion when we are able to completely eradicate this illicit mining and reform the sector.
He said the Ghana Armed Forces will this week deploy its men to the site to intensify monitoring and ensure that government wins the fight.
The Ghana Armed Forces, the Navy and the police, all the other forces are, rally up, and I'm sure within this week they are going to deploy them also to the various, Galamsey sites, and they are going to stay there for a long period.
Reclamation of some land that have been degraded by Galamsey is currently ongoing in some part of the country.
We've been talking to AESL, which has prepared some documents, and we have also consulted some experts in the mercury around the Chibi area, where they are currently planting the poles to indicate the levels that the mercury content are quite high. We're not going to reclaim those areas immediately. We will leave it for some work to be done. But where the mercury contents have been determined to be acceptable for vegetation purposes, those areas will go ahead with the reclamation.
Now the stories this evening. Investigations by the National Security Bureau of National Investigations and the National Petroleum Authority have cleared the MD, Managing Director of BOST, Alfred Obing Boateng, of any wrongdoing in the sale of 5 million litres of contaminated fuel. At a news briefing, Energy Minister Asiedu-Dartey said the contamination of the 5 million litres occurred before the MD of BOST assumed office, and therefore the sale of such products is not new to the company.
The Energy Ministry set up an 8-member investigative committee to probe into the sale of 5 million litres of contaminated fuel by the Bulk Oil Storage and Transportation Company after huge public outcry. But according to the Energy Minister Asiedu-Dartey, the Bureau of National Investigations and the National Petroleum Authority are conducting parallel investigations to unravel the circumstances leading to the sale. As part of the preliminary findings, the MD of BOST, Alfred Obing Boateng, has been cleared of any wrongdoing in the whole transaction.
In the investigations carried out so far by the state security agencies and the MPA, shows that on the basis of previous practice, there was no wrongdoing at BOST on the sale of the 5 million litres for the contaminated products.
According to the BNI and stated by the Energy Minister, the sale of contaminated fuel is not new to BOST.
BOST, as a matter of practice, has sold contaminated products as far back as 2014. Over 8 million litres of contaminated fuel was sold in 2015, and over 12 million litres was sold in 2016.
The Energy Ministry stated that the BNI report said BOST had sold contaminated fuel since 2015, and also the company has largely sold it to companies not licensed by the National Petroleum Authority. The Energy Ministry says despite the current development, there would be changes in the sale of contaminated fuel going forward.
The question going forward is whether we have to have new codified processes for dealing with contaminated products. To this effect, the ministry will start the implementation of recommendations, some of which have been pending from previous investigation reports on the sale and discharge of contaminated products.
The Energy Ministry has tasked the head of Chemical Engineering Department of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology to lead the ministerial committee to overhaul the operations of BOST.
Natalie, this particular development has generated a lot of reactions and divergent views. The minority in Parliament is also accusing the Bureau of National Investigations, BNI, of covering up the managing director of BOST in the sale of this contaminated fuel saga. The group is saying that the BNI's directive for the dissolution of the committee set up to investigate the matter amounts to abuse of office. The minority leader, Haruna Idrisu, who was addressing the media, is saying that the BNI is sowing the seeds of corruption and should not be allowed to do that.
the mere selling of contaminated oil matter to motorists. The mere admission of the regulator, the National Petroleum Authority, to the extent that they were unaware and they had not licensed a particular entity, also raises major issues as to which entity, corporate, registered or unregistered, that the state should be dealing with. The BNI will have to come public to share with us what they have investigated and what their findings are, and not just a mere statement to the effect that the minister should dissolve his committee. We are already aware of an internal theft between the ministry and other players within the government. This reticent development we find unacceptable, and therefore, if the president means well in fighting corruption, he should not be seen supporting any cover-up and must allow the ministerial committee to proceed henceforth with full investigation of the matter and report publicly. Or they may as well say that they are not interested in any other matter of public interest.
Now, the sale of contaminated fuel by BOST raised lots of public outcry, including calls for the MD of BOST, Alfred Obeng-Boateng, to step down. But recent reports by the BNI say otherwise. Now, these are aspects of the BNI investigations into the BOST saga, like you see on your screen here. The investigation report reveals that the product contamination occurred on January 18 of 2017, prior to the time that the MD for BOST, Alfred Obeng-Boateng, assumed office, which was on January 23, 2017. And as a result, he cannot be held responsible for it. And the report also goes on to indicate that as a competent MD, he interdicted the officers involved and set up a 6-member committee chaired by the head of Internal Audit Department to find out the causes that led to the contamination. And so this is what it says that Alfred Obeng actually put in place. The report also goes on to say currently the MD has received a draft copy of the committee's report and is still waiting for the final report on July 7. And we also know that this BNI report has further gone on to say that a laboratory test, in fact, from the Tema Oil Refinery and technical recommendation made by the general manager shows that other options were available to sell the product for industrial purposes, making it not wrong for that sale to have taken place, saying that it could be used for asphalt processing, texture and cement manufacturing, and those were in fact the best deals. So this goes to prove that the MD of BNI is not guilty of this action. And then there's the Energy Minister, Boakye-Agyarko, who made recommendations into this. He said specifically that improving the petroleum standard operating procedures to prevent future occurrences is what should be done on this issue, as well as the setting up of a committee led by Dr. Lawrence Takwa, head of chemical engineering at the KNUST, to review operations of BOST in a bid to prevent future contamination. These are a few of the recommendations made by Energy Minister Boakye-Agyarko into this issue. Alfred, and you're taking this discussion further.
Absolutely. And you know, when this came up and this development of the BNI exonerating Alfred Obeng of any wrongdoings brought up a lot of reactions, divergent views and opinions. Adam Senano is the co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. He joins me via Skype this evening. Adam, thank you very much for your time. Now, are you one of those who is surprised by this development, or you agree with the details of that BNI report exonerating the BOST MD from any wrongdoing and the process of awarding the contract to these two companies, justifying it as right?
Good evening, Alfred, and good evening to your viewers. Indeed, I am very surprised at this BNI report. I am baffled at how we could have a report when we were not notified that any such investigation was being conducted by the BNI or by the National Security. I am disappointed because we had a good look at the terms of reference of the committee. It was broad enough to take on board all the concerns we had as Ghanaians. The composition of the committee had the kind of industry leaders and experts that we believed would arrive at good conclusions on the issues at stake. To all of a sudden, out of the blue, tell us that an institution that we were not aware about we were aware of doing this investigation has come up with a report without us being aware of its terms of reference, about the technical competencies of those who were involved in it, and we want to weigh that type of report as equal to what this committee would have done is very absurd. We are not happy about this at all. I think it's a betrayal of our trust, because usually as civil society, we are quite suspicious of committees and commissions in general. But having looked at the terms of reference and the composition, we said, look, let's wait and see what this committee will come up. If midstream we are being told that it's been dissolved without any clear-cut justifiable reasons, there is a big challenge.
But Adam, you recall that when this issue came up earlier on in the week, sometime last week and 2 weeks gone by, the National Petroleum Authority brought out a statement of what they say was their preliminary findings into that particular investigation. And they did indicate, and I state in that particular statement that they put out, that the NPA had noted that Movimpina Energy and Zoop Oil were not licensed to undertake any commercial activity in the downstream petroleum industry. And they quoted Section 11 of the NPA Act 691/2005, and they indicated they were going to take appropriate legal sanctions against these two companies because they did not have the requisite licensing to do so. But when you look at this particular report by the BNI, exonerating the whole process and the persons involved, it states that the findings of the security agencies also revealed that the NPA has never licensed a single company or entity dealing in waste petroleum products in Ghana. The report further revealed between 2014 and 2016, BOST sold contaminated fuel to more than 50 companies without licensing, thereby justifying or equalizing this and saying that it's a convention that's been going on for so long. So why do we even question this one?
Well, the fact that irregularities, illegal actions have been taking place in the past and not been acted upon does not make them legal at this point. One would expect that we would first establish the illegalities, irrespective of whether they are past or current, and on that basis find people who have done the wrong thing culpable, and then make recommendations. So it is not enough for them to say that the NPA has never licensed anyone in this area for XYZ. Another aspect of it that is a bit confusing is the fact that there is a difference between contaminated fuel and slop or sludge, that's oil that's residual as a result of the tanks being cleaned, etc. And in this particular report, we cannot make a distinction between what they are selling. Is it the contaminated fuel, or are they talking about sludge or slop? It's for these reasons why it is difficult to accept this as a good report that reflects what has happened and what ought to be done. So there are several reasons why this report is just not the kind of report we should be considering at this point. The committee should be allowed to work. The members, we think, is broad-based. It gives them enough scope to do all types of investigation that allow us to come out with a good conclusion. It will be a betrayal of the trust of the people if they fail to allow the committee to work.
Thank you very much for your time this evening via Skype. That's Adam Senano, who's the co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption, saying that it will be a betrayal of the people's trust if this should be made to stand. That is what the situation is.
News 360 Skype interview is brought to you by MTN. Everywhere you go.
In other news this evening, Ghana and Ethiopia have pledged to work towards strengthening the ties of cooperation in the areas of trade, investment and education. President Akufo-Addo, on the sidelines of the 29th Africa Union Summit, called on his Ethiopian counterpart, President Mulatu Teshome.
President Mulatu Teshome noted that the historic relations between the two countries dates back to the years of the first two leaders of Ghana and Ethiopia, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and Emperor Haile Selassie, respectively. The two leaders at their time played an instrumental role in the decolonization of Africa and the strengthening of the Pan-African institution. President Teshome suggested the two countries learn from each other and adopt best practices in order to create wealth and prosperity for their peoples. Whilst acknowledging the significant economic growth rate chalked by Ethiopia, President Akufo-Addo also commended President Teshome for the rapid infrastructure development taking place in that country, adding this would spur on more growth in Ethiopia. The two countries, President Akufo-Addo said, would have to increase the volumes of trade between them and also deepen cooperation in the areas of modernized agriculture.
Had an opportunity to review our common history, the involvement that our two countries had in the anti-colonial struggle and the establishment of the Organization of African Unity, the role of our own leader Kwame Nkrumah, the role of the Emperor Haile Selassie. In fact, I made the suggestion to the President that we're thinking of bringing up a proposal within the AU to honor the Emperor Haile Selassie and also for his role in the establishment of the OAU, and also the late Prime Minister's Meles Zenawi for his role in the transformation of the AU into the current AU.
Meanwhile, President Akufo-Addo appended his signature to 8 treaties, protocols and charters of the African Union on the sidelines of the 29th AU Summit in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. The treaties include the Constitution for the African Civil Aviation Commission, Protocol on the establishment of the African Monetary Fund, the African Union Convention on Cybersecurity and Personal Data Protection, and the Road Safety Charter. Amira El Fadil is the Commissioner for Social Affairs of the African Union.
By personally signing these instruments, you are, as always, giving us great inspiration to accelerate their implementation with more effectiveness.
President Akufo-Addo noted the treaties will facilitate economic development.
Facilitate the integration of our continent and especially to deal with issues of economic development. So it's important. Documents, treaties are made, obligations are allegedly, and they're not signed. They don't really mean very much. So it's important that all of us have an attitude that once the obligations have been made and have been reduced onto paper, we sign them to be able to give effect to them.
Indeed.
And bring them into life.
And please rely on us for their implementation as well. For support.
Excellent.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, the President, Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has returned home from the 29th session of the African Union in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. As you see on your screen, said the President was met on arrival by Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia and some government officials. Whilst at the summit, the President Akufo-Addo was named as the AU Gender Champion for 2017. The award by the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa is in recognition of the President's efforts in gender equality and at the continental levels. The President also met Ethiopian President Mulatu Mishomi, where the two discussed strengthening cooperation between their two countries.
Let's now take a look at how the weather will be faring this evening through till tomorrow morning.
Still in the bulletin tonight.
Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia dismisses assertions the $15 billion pledge by China is a loan.
And on the foreign front, Uganda Civil Service implements strict dressing code, making it an offense for female public servants to wear sleeveless blouses and skirts above the knee.
It's a tough dress code there. Still watching News 360. Return with these stories and the very latest from the world of business and sports. Stay with us.
Oh, thanks for staying with us on News 360. Time for business. My name is Nanekia Mensah-Brampa. Well, the debate on whether the $15 billion pledge by the Chinese government to Ghana is a loan or not still continues. But this time around, the Vice President has spoken. Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia has dismissed suggestion that the recent $15 billion pledge to China by China to transform Ghana's economic fortunes is a loan. Now, at a press conference on China-Africa relations by IDEC, he said government negotiated for a partnership leveraging on 5% of the country's proven bauxite reserves, and the agreement would be presented to Parliament in due course.
The Vice President Mahamudu Bawumia, after a 4-day official visit to China, negotiated some new economic agreements to transform Ghana's economic fortunes. A new financing model presented by the government of Ghana is seeking for partnerships to fund its development agenda, leveraging on natural resources. Ghana is leveraging on 5% of its 160 million metric tons of bauxite reserves for the deal, responding to the controversies generated following his visit to China. Vice President Mahamudu Bawumia said the $15 billion pledge by China is not a loan to Ghana.
We are not borrowing money from China. Somehow people think that we've gone for a big Chinese loan of 15 billion. No. We are proposing a joint venture with China that we bring less than 5% of our bauxite reserves, which we own, and they bring the 15 to 20 billion. That is the joint venture.
He said the necessary negotiations would be tabled before Parliament for ratification in due course.
Fundamentally, when you enter into any joint venture, any business partnership with anybody, you have to negotiate properly. And that is our responsibility, to negotiate well. But if we finalize any agreements, eventually those agreements will have to go to Parliament for approval.
According to him, government is committed to its ambition of achieving a Ghana beyond aid.
We went to China recently, not for aid or handouts. The President Nana Akufo-Addo charged us to go with bold yet thoughtful and innovative plans if we want to build the Ghana we want.
Also speaking at the program, Chinese Ambassador to Ghana, Sun Buahong, said China is committed to doing business with African countries and will not interfere in the domestic affairs of those countries.
China will further enhance cooperation with Africa in areas such as digital economy, artificial intelligence, renewable energy, environmental protection.
The IDEC conference on China-Africa relations is on the theme Building Resilient Industries and Infrastructure for Economic Transformation in Africa, the Role of China.
Now, in an earlier story on the sale of contaminated fuel, TV3 inadvertently used visuals of gold, and our attention has been drawn to the fact that this created the impression that gold was involved in the sale of contaminated fuel. Well, we wish to apologize for any harm this might have caused the image of GOIL, and it will also interest you to know that GOIL has been tagged as one of the companies that has seen its fuel prices reduce after the 2% fuel price reduction for the first pricing window. You would want to visit the stations to know exactly what the price is. But let's move away from that, and the National Health Authority is expected to receive over 2.2 billion cedis this year for its activities. Members of Parliament were, however, concerned about the timely release of funds by the Finance Ministry to enable the authority settle its debts owed to service providers.
Parliament adopted the formula for the disbursement of the National Health Insurance Fund for 2017. The fund is expected to pay for the healthcare costs of NHIS members, facilitate the provision of access to healthcare services, and undertake investments to promote access to healthcare. Members expressed worry indebtedness to service providers has become a burden on the NHIA due to funding gap, and urged the Finance Ministry to release the funds on time.
The scheme is also made to take upon itself increasing burden. It is now made to support the Ministry of Health. It is now made to support districts. It's taking upon itself the construction of capital projects.
We're in July, and this important campaign
what people are looking for, we are still to pass a formula to revive a collapse, an insurance scheme that was described as collapse, an insurance scheme that was described as in severe distress. There is hope for the insurance authority. Mr. Speaker, if we are able to do this for the next year, the authority will have surplus in 2018. This shows that this government has started something nice that is doing.
Let this House, in debating this fund, work towards avoiding a speeding clock towards cash and carry.
The ministry has set up a committee and charged it with terms of reference that gives us an objective to meet stakeholders from all sides of the political divide. All former CEOs of National Insurance Authority have been invited to sit somewhere this weekend to look at how best we can find solutions for sustenance of the National Insurance Authority.
10.7 million people were issued with valid NHIS cards as against the targeted 11.9 million people for the year 2016.
Now, insurance companies are being encouraged to partner credit reference bureaus in a bid to control the high rate of insurance fraud. That's the plea coming from General Manager for Dun & Bradstreet, Adebowale Otobatele. He was speaking during a workshop organized for stakeholders in the financial services sector.
Move aimed at strengthening the risk management processes and controlling the increasingly high rates of insurance-related frauds, such as false claims for damages and fraudulent injury claims. A leading credit reference bureau, Dun & Bradstreet, aims to develop detailed reports on the insurance history of applicants, in addition to providing access to the credit history of such applicants in instances where prospective insurance customers have applied for an insurance service and where there are questions about a client's claims history from other insurers. The move is considered by industry watchers as timely and relevant to ensure the insurance company is able to reduce their vulnerability to high-risk individuals or companies. Speaking at the sidelines of a workshop organized for industry players, General Manager for Dun & Bradstreet, Adebowale Otobatele, said the time has come for insurance companies to tap into the benefits of credit reference bureaus.
That's because over time, people have refused, or we just haven't thought about the idea of building an ecosystem that promotes or that guarantees growth for everybody. You realize the banks have been making use of credit bureaus and they're enjoying the services. Insurance companies have not. But the interesting thing is the same people that insurance companies provide cover to also do business with the banks.
Regulators of the insurance industry, the National Insurance Commission, has welcomed the call, saying it will greatly reduce the cost of doing business. Joseph Benford is head marketing research and external relations at the Commission.
The insurance companies, all of them, subscribe to the credit bureau services. They will know their customers. The best way of selling, and one of the techniques, is to know your customers in full detail, and the information is current and then it's available wherever. One way is to know your customer, the other way is for the customer to also know you, so you will also be known. Then together, that will reduce transaction costs.
The use of credit bureaus such as Dun & Bradstreet will in the long term will ensure that the insured enjoy more affordable insurance. Studies of insurance companies in other clients have shown consumers with better credit and insurance history, as shown in their reports, generally have fewer losses and far less expensive claims.
So you can visit our website 3news.com for more news updates. My name is Nikia Mensa. More on News360. Good evening.
The sports segment is brought to you by
Time for the sports news now with me, Thierry Nyan, here on News360.
Are you excited or what about the Black Stars? Lots of people really are indifferent because of how the Black Stars beat Ethiopia some weeks back. But the games that have followed really have not got exactly to plan. Ghana coach Kwesi Appiah has lamented on the poor traveling arrangements made for the Black Stars ahead of their game against the United States of America, insisting it thwarted the training schedule for the team. He revealed that the team failed to train for 2 days ahead of the clash with the Yanks because they did not arrive in Connecticut as a team.
Unfortunately, the traveling arrangements was poorly arranged in the sense that, under normal circumstances, when you play a game, you're supposed to, have a recovery training, which is the next day. But the best thing could have been that we either train in the morning and we all leave in the afternoon, or we leave in the morning and train in the afternoon. But that was not done. Players had to travel on different flights, and some even got there the following day. And I think it's not the best way forward. And looking forward, I had a meeting, with the management that this should never ever happen again. And it's important that we make sure it's a team, and team should not be separated. Anywhere they go in, whatever they're doing, they all need to be in a group. So we had a promise from the management that this was never going to happen again. And it actually had a big effect because we could not train on Thursday. And on Friday, we had to stay in the dressing room for hours due to rain. And, it wasn't a good experience, but the bottom line is we just need to learn from our mistakes and make sure we don't do the same thing again.
All right, so Kwesi Appiah fielded some new players, since he took charge of the Black Stars again. And some of the old players, including Chelsea defender Abdul Babaraman, is set for another loan spell at Schalke 04. The 23-year-old will spend the coming campaign at a Chelsea Kirchen after impressing on a loan spell last season. The Ghana international wants to spend time with the Royal Blues as he seeks to recover from a serious injury which has kept him out of action since January. Chelsea are believed to have reached a loan agreement with the German outfit, which will keep him, that is the left back, at the club until 2018. The move is in no way a precursor for an exit for a man, but is designed to give him more experience of first-team football before a possible return to Chelsea as a first-team player. So Babaraman will be looking to make sure that he gets a club in the next few days just so he can cement his position in the club ahead of the upcoming season. One player who is also looking to do the same is Lyon striker Alexander Lacazette, who has completed a medical at Arsenal ahead of becoming their record transfer signing in a deal worth at least £45 million. The Gunners had an initial bid of, that particular amount for the 26-year-old France international rejected, but talks continued. His fee of up to £52 million with add-ons will surpass the £42.4 million Arsenal paid Real Madrid for Mesut Ozil in 2013. Lacazette was second top scorer in the French Ligue 1, last season with 28 goals. He has scored 129 goals in 275 matches in all competitions since breaking into the first team in 2009-2010 campaign. His league tally last season was bettered only by PSG's Edison Cavani with 35, who was absolutely firing on all cylinders. So we still remain in London, but this time around, of course, to the west side of that particular city. I'm talking about a club called Chelsea. One of their biggest legends, their fattest legends, if you may want to call it, their captain, leader, legend, John Terry. He left the club just a few days ago, and now he signed for Aston Villa. But these are the numbers he left behind at Stamford Bridge. He made 717 club appearances. 580 of them were as captain, and then also scoring 67 goals, making him the highest ever scorer as a defender. But he won 5 Premier League titles, 5 FA Cup titles, 3 League Cup titles, 1 Champions League and 1 Europa League, making 15 major trophies John Terry won as a captain at Chelsea. Now away.
Welcome back to News 360. Time now for some entertainment news, and it's been 10 years of Ghana's Most Beautiful. Auditioning for the season 11 of the show starts from Friday, July 7 in Tamale. But ahead of that, Judge Linda Ampa says she looks forward to seeing confident, poised and knowledgeable women ready to fight for the crown. Owusu Arai has more.
Mama Guy is alive. You don't do that. You need peace and unity. After all, from the north to the south, east to the west, we are one people.
The Ghana's Most Beautiful experience has certainly been a good learning curve for contestants and viewers alike. From shaping minds to offering education and entertainment, GMB has enhanced the appreciation of the Ghanaian culture. Linda Ampa has served as a judge on the show for 10 years and describes the experience as fun and impactful.
I have seen girls that I did not recognize between the time they came for auditioning and the finals, complete transformation in terms of their look, their walk, their poise, and everything about them changes.
The cultural-oriented pageant show has proved crucial in boosting the confidence of contestants and leaving them best informed.
You gain a lot of confidence, and I expect that they'll use that in whatever career they find themselves in. As a confident woman, you can go anywhere, speak. That's what we look for as judges. You know, you're looking for a complete woman, not just a beautiful person to look at. So I do expect that they will impact society with the little that they have learned.
But through it all, the seasoned fashion designer is of the view that regardless of the occasional conflict of opinion with the public, the judges have always presented a worthy winner.
But you see, one thing we look out for, not everything we see the audience get opportunity to see. You know, I get to hear all that goes on in the house. For me, I put all that into my, into my decision. Probably on stage they look the part, they do all that, but she's a thief, or she doubles in all kinds of things. If I have my way, I won't let that person carry a crown.
Auditioning for the 2017 GMB starts from Friday, July 7. And what would Judge Linda be looking out for?
A very confident, super confident woman. Extremely intelligent, beautiful to look at. You don't have to know it all when you come in, but you should have an idea and you must have an open mind, ready to learn. So I'm looking for a young woman that I haven't met yet. Somebody who would blow our minds in 2017.
Well, let's just stay with this. Ghana's Most Beautiful has entertained and enlightened Ghanaians for the past decade. Auditions for the 11th season are fast approaching. Some Ghanaians have been sharing with TV3 their views on the past seasons and the expectations for season 11.
The 11th edition of Ghana's Most Beautiful pageant will focus on bridging the unemployment gap through the use of culture and diversity. After 10 years educating and entertaining Ghanaians on the values of culture and traditional heritage, organizers of the pageant say the 2017 edition will seek to empower women to be their own bosses by starting their own businesses.
We have spoken 10 years about cultures that we want abolished, and so we can't keep saying the same thing, and so we want to go now to the positive side. We want to go now to the educational side.
Brands executive of the event, Prince Dake, says the twist has become necessary to make contestants and winners have more impact on society. The pageant will also be opened to Ghanaians living in the diaspora by way of a special audition which will be held online.
So, straight out of Ghana. That's what the organizers of Ghana Most Beautiful pageant saying, that this year's edition will focus on entrepreneurship projects. The contest, which has been running for the past 10 years, on cultural significance to economic development, will promote startup businesses through cultural heritage. I think this is a very good dimension that they're bringing to this. So there's going to be a lot more as we go on. If you believe you're beautiful as Natalie, and you believe that you're Ghana's most beautiful, go to 3news.com and download the forms. Yeah,
you should. Straight out of Ghana. It's going to be a pretty exciting edition of Ghana's Most Beautiful this time around, as always.
My name is Alfred Akansi.
And I'm Natalie Force. Thanks so much for your time this evening. There's more news on our website, 3news.com. Next is Do Not Love Me So Much. And news at 10 will simulcast.